Just wanted to take a moment to thank you for listening to SiDEBAR Forever. If you like the show, please subscribe to us at sidebarforever.com, as well as share episodes of the podcast on your social media. That way, new listeners can find us as well. Disney Plus and Marvel Studios have finally released the first 3 episodes of their long-awaited animated series, What If? Everyone on this podcast is a fan of the OG comics, and we were intrigued at the idea of Marvel relaunching What If as an animated television show. And overall, the first 3 episodes are not bad, although mileage may vary. Dwight and Swain jumped on the mics to discuss what if Peggy Carter had become Captain Carter, the first Avenger? What if T'Challa became a Star-Lord? And what if the world lost its mightiest heroes? They also offered their opinions on the animation style, the voice work, most of it done by actors from the original MCU films, and how a show with a premise like this might be resonating with your casual MCU film fan. I'm Major Johnson. I am not on this podcast, but I'd like to think I'm somewhere off in the distance like Uatu, watching, observing, yet refusing to interfere, but still asking, what if?
I just thought this was a really interesting area for for Marvel and for Kevin Feige to kind of go into.
Mm-hmm.
I thought really them making any kind of a TV series based on these characters that we've been seeing in the films for the last 12, 14 years, whatever it is.
Right.
I thought that was interesting, period. But then the fact that they were going to do What If and that it was going to be animated, I thought was, again, majorly interesting. And I'll get into kind of my reasons why later in our conversation. But the first episode premiered on August 11th, and I guess there are 9 episodes in total.
Right.
For this season of it.
Mm-hmm.
This is part of Marvel's Phase 4, and it was created by A.C. Bradley, and I think she worked on 2 other animated series before this, Troll Hunters and 3 Below, both of which I've never seen.
Troll Hunters is with not Benicio del Toro. Yeah, Benicio del Toro. That's it. That's his story.
He's in that one as well?
Yeah. Well, not Benicio.
Okay.
But is it Benicio del Toro? That's no, the director.
Oh,
Benicio
Guillermo del Toro.
Guillermo del Toro. Yeah.
Okay, the other Del Toro.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But
and I was surprised to see this too. Ryan Meinerding is the head of visual development for the series.
Oh yeah.
Did you catch that?
I did. He's the man. He's making sure his stamp is on everything.
Yeah.
All those costume designs are his, man. Ultimately.
Yeah. He's a concept artist who's worked on a ton of films, and specifically the Marvel Cinematic Universe films,
mm-hmm.
Like Dwight is saying, in terms of costume designs and character designs. Bringing them from the comic page to the big screen. And oddly enough, we tried to get Meinerding on the show
mm-hmm.
in the previous iteration years and years ago, and it just never worked out.
Mm-hmm. And
I remember Ian McCaig, our friend Ian McCaig, was trying to be to help us out in terms of getting in touch with Ryan, and it just didn't work out. But he and Ian are friends, and I believe Ian was his mentor when he was first kind of coming up as a concept artist.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, and oddly enough, look, so when Ryan left Ian, he was but the learner. Perhaps now he is the master.
Right.
He is no longer the Padawan, sir.
Right. Nice. Very well stated for the Disney universe, sir, and Star Wars and beyond.
Yeah. But anyway, what were your initial takeaways, man, from the first 3 episodes of the show?
I think they're very good, man. I get the vibe now where, here's my thing. I wrote down a couple of notes about what my pluses and minuses were. And, while I love me some Jeffrey Wright,
mm-hmm.
I'm not feeling his voice as being the right one for Utah or
Uatu.
Uatu, thank you. Maybe for Utah it is, but for Uatu it isn't.
Salt Lake City, I got you.
Right?
The infinite parallel universes, no.
Not so much. Not so much. But yeah, it's like, and don't get me wrong. I mean, it's an opening that's got. They need to either boost him up a little bit or give him some more, like put a little more volume behind his voice, because when he's narrating, it's perfectly fine. But it's that initial opening with the what if is like it's kind of faint. It's like, okay, you have to ask yourself, these are cosmic beings. They should have more gravitas. Maybe that's just what I'm putting upon them. Maybe that's my thing.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because that was in my notes as well, and I was going to ask you if you thought that Wright was really bringing it as Uatu. Mm-hmm. To me, he's not quite right, because I don't hear Uatu sounding all deep and breathy. Mm-hmm. I hear him sounding as I am Uatu, kind of almost less emotional and less evocative and more matter of fact. In other words, he is an observer. He's watching, he's observing, he doesn't interfere. So him sounding a little less into it, mm-hmm. Almost just like a simple college professor stating the facts. This is what it is.
Right.
So, but that I agree with you there. I don't think he's quite right, and I love Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Immensely. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Maybe they give him some other cues later on down the line, and eventually, he does. I mean, if they play this out to its full fruition, like they do in comics, he will break his pact to some degree and push himself away from just being a watcher and become more of a helper. Mm. So maybe at that point in time, we'll see a little more vocal inflection, and a little more presence based on that.
Maybe so. And I guess we should say that the first 3 episodes. Episode number 1 is What If Captain Carter were the first Avenger. Basically, Peggy Carter becomes Captain Carter or Captain Britain or
Captain Britain, yeah.
Yeah, what have you. The second episode is What If T'Challa became a Star-Lord? Mm-hmm. And then the third one is What If the World Lost Its Mightiest Heroes? Those are the official titles of those episodes. But what else did you think, other than Wright possibly not being,
not being right.
You're right.
I'm not as far as the first Avenger goes. 2 things about that. I mean, I love the animation. At first it kind of had to grow on me, because I see a lot of strong Disney influence in it. Like there's a lot of playful facial shapes and constructions and liberties taken, which is good though. It's after the first couple of watches it sold me. First couple of viewings it sold me. Mm-hmm. The whole play of whole thing of wherein now Steve Rogers becomes the first like Iron Man / Iron Giant. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah, not so much. It just didn't. It doesn't sit well with me. I mean, and the arm was just there waiting to be used in the background, and conveniently, Steve Rogers fits the bill to be inside of it before he became, shot that he didn't fit the bill. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's almost like the suit was made for him, because nobody else really understands it, but he understands it perfectly well. He hasn't been tutored in it or anything like that, so he's got a natural proclivity towards the mechanics of it. It's just weird, It's convenient,
I liked it, yo. I can't believe you didn't like it. I liked it a lot.
I didn't say I didn't like it. It's just it didn't it's just weird. I mean, I keep getting images of the Iron Giant when I see it. And I really want to see the Iron Giant. I want to see, like, Ironmonger or whatever the character was supposed to be that Obadiah Stane was playing in the movie version of it.
Okay.
It doesn't feel like formidable to me. It feels playful.
Okay. All right. What about the one with T'Challa becoming a Star-Lord? You said you watched that one twice, right?
Oh yeah. That's my favorite, man, because it was unexpected they would have so much character participation in it. Like things you didn't think you wanted to see. Like, I think to me the star of that particular episode is not only Boseman, rest in peace, but Jimon Hansu killed it.
Oh yeah,
kills it. I mean, he's hilarious. He's funny.
That might be some of his best acting, yo. He's generally pretty terrible.
You think so?
Just like unimpressive. I mean, to me, it's like.
Oh, okay. See, I liked him in Gladiator, man. He was good. He was good in Gladiator to me, and Give Us Free and all that, and I'm a stud, yeah, but but no, to your point, though, I mean, but still, he's very. You can see the character. You felt like this character was really into what he was saying to him. It's like, really, the Star Lord?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, should I bow to you, or should I? Versus the way it actually really was in the movie with Guardians of the Galaxy, and it was interesting, and I like the idea of the concept that they evoked. Just that how one man can change everything, and how like the purity of T'Challa's soul, it helped to change even the most ardent Ravagers into being like more of a Robin from the rich given to the poor Robin Hood type situation.
Right. The personality of their whole kind of mission in life was changed by the nobility and the ethical standings of T'Challa, and not the other way around. Even Michael Rooker as Yondu, was kind of, like you said, more of a Robin Hood or a Zorro kind of a figure, as opposed to a straight Ravager or someone who's like a hooligan, so to speak. But yeah, I agree. And what about as far as what if Earth the world lost its mightiest heroes with Samuel Jackson as Nick Fury?
I don't know. I mean, I think this is. I know because it's a series. It's all building up to some kind of climactical, crescendo.
Yeah, it would have to. Yeah,
they have to. But it's just. I mean, to see them all kind of picked off so easily at like their weakest moments by what turned out to be, I guess you call him Yellow Jacket.
Right.
Was like, okay, yeah, I don't know if you're to pierce the person of a godlike being like Thor that easily, or even be able to get inside of the Hulk when nobody else can do it. But I guess what it boils down to, because you're at a microscopic level, you can do you can get through a lot of those small parts that you ordinarily wouldn't be able to get through. Right. So it was mysterious. They did a good job of holding the mystery for a long time. It was like, who could this be? What the hell's going on? Because you had no idea.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that aspect of it.
When Black Widow finally said, "It's hope. It's all about hope," that's when I knew.
Okay.
I caught it then. I was like, "Oh, okay." Because I was thinking the same thing you were. I was like, like you said, they kept the mystery going for a long time. Mm-hmm. You couldn't really figure out what was going on. Like, how are these guys getting picked off? And by the way, he's a human being at this point.
Okay. Yeah.
He's not a god. He's just a human being with really nice hair that Hawkeye and Coulson commented on.
I love that. Yeah.
That was very funny. That was very funny.
Yeah.
But I do think, like you said, and then the reveal at the end that it was actually Hank Pym as Yellow Jacket, as portrayed by Michael Douglas, who came back and reprised his role. I thought that was pretty cool.
It was. A rag looking Michael Douglas too. Yeah, he was like a ragged looking Michael Douglas. He's like a haggard.
Yeah, exactly. like Michael Douglas looking like something somewhere between himself and his dad, Kirk Douglas.
and Scrooge, yo.
Just kind of and he had that kind of Janet and Hope. He had that old man grizzle in his voice.
He did, yeah. He did.
But as Dwight is kind of implying too, and I think I like Captain Carter, and I liked T'Challa as a Star-Lord. Those two were my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
But as Dwight's kind of implied, a lot of the original actors came back and reprised their roles in the MCU films for this animated series. So Haley Atwell came back as Peggy Carter. Sebastian Stan was Bucky. Dominic Cooper was Howard Stark, Tony Stark's dad.
Mm-hmm.
Stanley Tucci was Erskine, but Josh Brolin, Benicio del Toro, Kurt Russell, Karen Gillan, Jeremy Renner, Mark Ruffalo, Tom Hiddleston, Clark Gregg, even Jamie Alexander as Sif. She came back.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, that was her. Yeah. Now missing from it was Chris Evans was not Steve Rogers.
Right.
Yeah, that was an actor named Josh Keaton.
Mm-hmm.
Lake Bell was Natasha Romanoff, a.k.a. the Black Widow. That wasn't Scarlett Johansson.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, and then the voice of Captain Marvel was not Brie Larson. It was actually another actor.
Okay. And Hugo Weaving is not Hugo Weaving wasn't playing Red Skull either.
Right, right. But he hadn't been the Red Skull since the first Avenger, though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true.
Hugo's like, you got to pay your boy. Sorry.
Right. So I'm Elrond. So yeah, man.
But yeah. But one of the things that I thought about, man, watching these 3 episodes is the first and the third were pretty much already done in the original comic series back in the 70s and 80s.
Right.
You know, what if Captain America was someone else? They've done that before. And then also, you know, what if their world lost its mightiest heroes? You know, what if the Avengers had been no more? That might have been the very first what if, as a matter of fact.
Could have been.
You know. And so that, you know, they had pretty much done those stories in a different way in the comics. And then, you know, T'Challa being a Star-Lord, that's just kind of a go-to in the What If series to say, hey, what if Rick Jones was Captain Marvel, or Rick Jones became the Hulk, or, you know, they would do that. You know, what if Spider-Man actually was in the Fantastic Four? You know, what if Daredevil was in S.H.I.E.L.D.? What if someone else found the hammer? Jane Foster found the hammer of Thor. And then they actually put that in canon. You know, in later on in the comics, and she did actually pick up the hammer of Thor and become.
And in the new movie, that's what's going to be. It's going, yeah. So
yeah, Love and Thunder. So, so you know, they kind of, you know, done that kind of what if someone else did this. But I thought, like you said, like you pointed out, and that was a good point, man. That it was very interesting that T'Challa's place amongst Yondu and his crew, you know, made a difference in their lives in the same way that his place in Wakanda. And then eventually in the Avengers, you know, he made a difference, you know, by him being, you know, someone who was raised differently than, you know, the people that he was writing for, you know, did.
Think about this, man. Let's trace it way back. Let's go back to the movies real quick in terms of the significance of the Black Panther and T'Challa. Let's thought about this. It's a bit of a rabbit trail. Okay, his decision not to kill Baron Zemo led to Baron Zemo being able to stay alive longer to kill several other people inside of the Falcon and Winter Soldier series, which leads to other events happening inside the Marvel series. So that whole trickle down theory is a strong one, man. Where it's like you just never know who and what you're affecting, and it's cool. It's cool. I dug it a lot.
Yeah, and that was kind of the thing too that I appreciated. Again, I thought this was kind of an odd, maybe even a weird idea to say, hey, let's try to do this as an animated series, you know, because, you know, when What If came along, it was during the middle of, you know, like the Bronze Age of comics. So this is right when everybody is keying in on continuity. You know, the Roy Thomases and the children of Roy Thomas, you know, people who grew up on comics in the 60s and came of age in the 70s, and then became young comics professionals in the 70s and the 80s. You know, they're all leaning back to the continuity that Stan and Jack and Ditko and Buscema and you know, and all of those folks create, you know, that they started. So when What If comes along, you know, it's usually very much like Adrian pointed out on our episode. It's a deviation from the canon. It's a deviation from the continuity. You know, it's, you know, like there's a splintering, and then there's a river that goes off this way, and now we have a whole new different universe over here that runs parallel to this universe over there. And I like the fact that they did keep the spirit of that in this, like you said with T'Challa, although it's like, for some reason it didn't really hit me that they kidnapped Peter Quill and took him from his family and from Earth.
Right.
And kind of made him like this, you know, this adopted Oliver Twist kind of a guy or whatever, you know, hanging out with the vagabonds or whatever. But it really was like, okay, no, T'Challa had like a loving father and mother and sister and, you know, a loving community, and you just took this dude?
Right.
You know, this is fucking, you know, child kidnapping, yo.
Yeah. So it was, yeah. It was things like, I liked about it though, man, is I enjoyed the colorblindness of it, like, as you can see there in space and in galactic nature, there's everybody has different colors. I mean, Yondu's blue, some of his crews are pink, some of his crews is red, etc. So, like it said, as his crew members said, there was a great power surge outside where he was, and we figured it was him. Does this look anything like this kid to you? It's like, well, yeah, they all look alike to me. It's like, well, that was kind of cool. It's like
he's got two ears on the side. He's got one in the front.
Two eye holes, one mouth hole, and two ear holes.
Yeah.
Whose brother is that, man? Is that like Sam Raimi's brother or somebody like that? Who is that does that?
It is. I think it's James Gunn's brother.
James Gunn. Okay.
Yeah, it's James Gunn's brother. Yeah.
He's hilarious, man. Yeah, Sean Gunn. That's his. Yeah, Sean Gunn.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
That was great, man. And then also some of the little touches in that particular episode, like Karen Gillan as Nebula calling T'Challa Cha-Cha.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool. I was like, okay.
That was kind of sexy, yo. You know what I'm saying?
It kind of was, yo. It kind of was.
There's something going on.
It kind of was. It was like, okay.
All right.
And but I liked that a lot. I liked that an awful lot. And I liked it, like even in the one with the Avengers, I liked a lot of the humor that was in that particular episode where, we're talking about Thor's hair and how wonderful and rich and flowing his hair is, and, and even, some of the other kind of just quick one-liners and jokes that popped up. Now, I'll say this much as far as Captain Carter was concerned, and this goes back to the movies for me as well. I've never gotten comfortable with the idea of them saying that the super soldier serum makes someone amplified.
Okay.
Because in the comics, the original comics, Captain America is a guy.
Right.
He's just the ultimate physical specimen, but he's not super powered. He doesn't have the strength of 3 or 4 guys. He can't bend metal in his hands, and
right.
He can't snap handcuffs.
Right.
He is just supposed to be the ultimate physical specimen, the ultimate representation of human physiology.
Right.
And he just also happens to be a great strategist and a soldier and a fighter and all these other things. So I never really liked that, she can stop a truck, like she's, freaking Superman or some shit. I'm just like, okay. And they did that. They do that in the movies as well,
Right. Yeah, things like that I was willing to forgive because I realized the nature of the animation would have to be show some grand, physical exposition of what she can do. What I didn't like, even though it was timely, I realized this is where it was. I didn't like. I love Agent Carter, the television show. Let me say that.
Yeah.
And I love Haley Atwell. She's awesome. She's all that. But I didn't like. I'm always thrown back to that time era where it's like you're in the room, toots. And you're just a gal after all, and
yeah.
I get tired of that shit, like that friggin' Colonel Quinn. I'm glad she finally put him in his place. It's like she's like, I'm glad you're lucky you're in the room, Colonel. It's like yes, But for them to acknowledge that stuff, which is because they did it a little less obviously so in the first Avenger, the film, but. They definitely made it more obvious in this that, that she was being treated differently because she was a woman, and she just didn't have the presence and the respect of her peers that her male counterparts would. So I kind of liked that they did that, but like you said, it was annoying, and it was like, it's hard to listen to that through 2021 ears or 21st century ears. Yeah, that filter, yeah.
Where you sound like a dinosaur.
Right. Right.
And oddly enough, that the actor who played that general or that military
Colonel, yeah,
was he was the guy who was the father in Get Out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was the father. He played the father of the in Get Out. But
that's funny.
But like going back to what you were saying about the animation style, man, that was something else for me as well. Where it took a minute for me to kind of get used to it. My daughter used to watch these kinds of, she would watch the Disney movies and the Pixar movies, but then she would buy these kind of B-level and C-level kind of animated movies that they would make and put on DVD. And they would get like, Martin Short to do voices and, kind of actors who were a little bit more off of the beaten path, maybe a little past their quote prime.
Right.
And the animation would always look like better than like Dora the Explorer or something like that, but not as good as obviously like a Pixar film like Toy Story or Finding Nemo or something like that.
Right.
And that's kind of what this reminded me of. And like you said, after a while, I kind of got used to it. And I was like, okay, all right. It almost kind of looked a little bit like a Scanner Darkly. You remember that?
Yeah. It did.
Yeah.
Like it's like you could tell that the base of the animated character is definitely a 3D model, and they put a filter on it, which makes you think and with lines to make you think that it's an animated character, but it's not. It's done. It's all 3D.
Okay. All right. So I got
Man,
you, but yeah.
I think the biggest flip as far as characterization goes, not to interrupt you, is I love Thanos too, man. Thanos in his passive mode,
Yeah.
is really a treat, to see him.
Now you didn't like. You said you didn't. You were not ultimately super impressed with Brolin in the films,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no, I'm still not. But I mean, him as an animated character, is his personality and his immersion into the character came through in this, and it's him still trying to convince him that it's not really genocide. It's because I'm not
Right.
picking, I'm not targeting a particular people. It's
That was kind of the running joke throughout the whole episode, where people are trying to tell you're saying mass murder is actually the way to fix the galaxy,
right.
which was kind of cool that they actually kept exploring that as an idea. But as far as the Avengers episode goes, it's funny because Tom Hiddleston is fantastic as Loki live action. Like there's
Right.
nothing better. He might be the best bringing to life of one of those characters of all, because he just seems to have that kind of sniveling, covert, hidden agenda. The god of mischief. That
haughtiness.
Yeah, he just has all of that. Like it's in his face, it's in his physical demeanor, it's in his voice and how he projects it. It's in his acting, which is always great. But I found his voice acting to be a little stunted, to be a little stiff.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't quite as good. I mean, it's the same lines, as his,
Right.
I will reduce this planet to ash and rubble,
Right.
He's definitely bringing you, he's making the speeches that you want him to make. But I didn't find his voice acting to be as good per se. Same thing with, like even the actors who they hired who were playing other characters, like, the actor who was playing Betsy Ross. There was another one where I was just like, okay, these people just sound so plain and there's nothing behind what they're doing. They're just saying the lines, they're just,
Right.
there's just nothing to it,
Right. And to your point, that's an interesting point I was bringing up earlier, man. It's like that's why Jamal Hansen sticks out and various other character actors stick out, because you could tell they were committed to it, man. There was a connection that they got.
Yeah.
And it's hard to achieve that connection, I guess, I imagine, through depending on how you record it, because they could have been recording in one studio while another person recording in another studio. They may see the character, now have an idea of where they are, the immersion of the event that they're supposed to be in at the point in time. And
and that's a very fair point. They're obviously not recording together, and they may even have other substitute voice actors, to interact with, and not the originals. And like you said, not really being able to get a sense of where the character is and what this, the sense of peril or ease of the situation is.
Right.
So you're right about that. I think out of all of them, in terms of the OG actors who came back and reprised their roles, I think Haley Atwell was great. I thought that Dominic Cooper as Howard Stark, he's as good as always.
Yeah.
Talking about, I had a weekend affair with Hetty, whatever it is, some German actress from from the golden days of Hollywood in the 40s.
Right.
But I don't know what this is,
Right.
Hetty Lamar, somebody like that. But he was great. I thought the guy Josh Keaton, who played Steve Rogers, skinny Steve Rogers, he was pretty good.
Yeah.
He was pretty good. He kind of gave you a little bit of Chris Evans, because at first I was like, that's not Chris Evans, although it's
pretty close. Right.
It's definitely pretty close. Yeah. Rooker was not great to me. He was okay.
Yeah.
He was okay, but he's not great. I like to look at Michael Rooker
Okay.
when he talks. Maybe that might be my own personal shortcoming. And I thought Clark Gregg was fantastic.
Always.
Yeah, he's just always a pro, and he just killed it. And Sam Jackson again was great, man, as fucking Nick Fury, yo. He's got the code cracked on that. He can do live action, he can do voiceover. He can do it all. You know.
Actually, it's interesting. I like the animated version of The Collector, Benicio del Toro,
Yes,
better than I did the live action.
I agree with you, sir. Yeah, I did too.
He gave me that sense of massiveness. Like he looked like he could whip some ass. Like he could handle himself. You know.
Yeah, yeah, and he gave you quite a bit of that because he got into a little bit of a fight in the a little hand. He was throwing hands in the episode, correct?
Yeah, T'Challa and Yondu.
Yeah, yeah. So that was very cool, and I thought so as well. What do you think, man? And this may be my last question, I guess, formal question, but to you and I both. But how do you think a series like this, with this specific premise, will resonate with like the casual MCU film fan? Meaning, is it really just for super nerds like us and any of them who happen to come along, or do you think that the producers of the show were really aiming this at the casual MCU fan, and that this kind of an odd idea, because it was an odd idea even in the comics,
right?
You know, that the casual MCU fan who is not a super nerd is actually going to like get what it's supposed to be and feel it in the way that we felt it back in the 70s and 80s.
That's a really good question. I think the seeds of this go back to the first season of Loki. Wherein they started playing with the idea of splintering reality. So for the fan that liked Loki, and for the fans that like Loki, and there are many, if they start seeing where they're headed as far as the splintering reality goes, they might be more receptive to the idea of what this alternate reality offers with What If. As far as animated series goes, I think the biggest chasm for people that like live action versus animated is just that. You know, they don't like animated films, they're not going to care much for this version of the MCU.
Yeah.
But I think there'll be, if they don't watch this version of MCU, they're going to miss out on some of the key factors and some of the things that are going on, which are going to happen inside the live action too. So Marvel and Feige and all the story writers, all the writers are very smart, man. They have this extreme long plan that's worked for 12, 15 years. It continues to develop and get bigger and bigger each time they make a movie. And make some kind of additional IP they add into it, and that's that everything fits into it. So if you miss one thing, you're missing something that might be key to satisfying your interest or understanding development of that story that's coming up next. So very important, very inspirational, and very smart. So I think people will go along with it, if they're not with it initially for the ride, just to see where it goes next, just to see the end credit sequences and see where it takes you. Which there haven't been any end credit sequences in this, have there? Not that I've noticed. There've been like little tag-ons at the end, but not really end credit sequences.
Not like a stinger that they hide in the not like they do in the films that I've noticed, and
right,
yeah.
So, yeah, I think they'll, if they give it a chance, they'll like it. I think as far as discussing the weaker of the three, if I had to put as an idea out there, I think the weaker of the three, of course, to me is, because it was so beholden to the first film, its first Avenger. First Avenger is Captain Carter. To me, that was the weakest of the three. But that's not saying it was weak. Going back, like I said, watching it again, I saw some very like really significant points of action and effort that were involved in it that does pay off in the overall arc of Steve Rogers and Peggy Carter.
Right. And even in that episode with Captain Carter. Again, going back to kind of the spirit of the original comics, they still had her. She still helped defeat the Nazis in the Red Skull.
Right.
And ultimately, she does jump through time, through more like a portal, and end up in modern day in the same way that Steve Rogers, as Captain America, ended up in modern day. And they actually brought you to that very sequence where Cap runs out of the hospital room, and he's out in modern day New York, and then Nick Fury says, "Hey, we tried to ease you into this, Cap, but you're in 2015 or whatever it is. You've been in, frozen in time for the last, 80, 90 years." So I like the fact that they still kept that same thread. In other words, Captain America, someone with the super soldier serum, has to end up in modern day. The forces of the universe and fate are going to make sure that that happens. I thought that was actually pretty cool too. And I agree with you, man. I do think that the biggest hurdle will be people who don't like animation. You know, like there seems to be kind of a demarcation line between, or a separation point between people who really like live action and really like animation. You know, obviously someone like yourself and myself, you know, we fuck with both. But like my daughter, she likes the original. She loved the original Star Wars trilogy. She loved The Force Awakens when she first saw it. You know, and she was crying when she found out Yoda had died, and you know, she was all into it.
Right.
And then once she got to Clone Wars, she didn't really have much more interest in going back to the live action films.
Okay.
So when Mandalorian came along, she was like, she just wasn't interested. You know, she was all about the Clone Wars.
Right.
You know, and now she's really into anime. So, you know, when I talk about live action movies that I know she would enjoy,
right,
just seems to have little to no interest. You know what I mean?
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I was watching Captain Carter, and we were eating dinner at the kitchen table, and she had her earbuds in, and she was looking at her phone, and she paused her phone, and she was like, "What is that?" Because she thought it was anime at first.
Right.
You know, because I guess of the style, and she just couldn't tell what was going on. And I was like, "Oh, is this that?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, I heard about that. But I think you're right. I think the average fan who's really into the films, and probably more specifically, really into the actors who brought those characters to life for them, this is going to be a departure.
Right.
You know, in the same way that kind of was for us as fans of the comics and all the great artists who rendered those characters on the printed page. And then once we started seeing them like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and we're like, huh? You know, or you know, or Halle Berry as Storm, or you know, Thomas Jane as Punisher, and like, you know, he's like, no, what are you doing? Stop.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, man. And you know, a good point about that too is that, as character actors go, just character actors, it makes a difference. Like if this cast wasn't anywhere close to what the original cast was, like somebody else playing, you know, T'Challa, or somebody else playing Thanos. Even though I'm not a fan, like I said, Josh Brolin is not my first pick as far as voice goes. That's what I hear now, because of the series. So I want to hear Josh Brolin in the animated series too. If we're truly doing fan service, I want to hear everything that goes along with that, you know. And I think that if someone else is playing, I won't be able to accept it now as far as the animated series goes. Like, okay, well, he couldn't be there today, that kind of thing. Like if you had, you know, that would, you know, like if you had somebody else playing Agent Coulson, it's like, no, that's not Agent Coulson.
Yeah, man.
Sam Jackson. Someone's playing Sam Jackson. That's not Sam Jackson, you know.
Right.
That's Luke Jackson, but not Sam Jackson.
Well, but you know, that's the thing though. Like in all of those animated cartoons, like the X-Men in the '90s, and you know, and all this stuff, Spider-Man in the '90s, you know, they would have multiple different actors and voice actors, you know, playing those characters and voicing those characters. And I would not have been surprised if they had done it, but you know, because the reality is you're going to pay way more. In theory, you know, you're going to pay way more to get, you know, Kurt Russell to come back as Ego at the end of the T'Challa episode for like just one line,
30 seconds, right? Yeah,
yeah. You know, shows up at a recording studio and you know, does it for an hour and probably makes,
right,
you know, $10,000 or some shit, you know, something crazy, you know.
That's true.
You know, and granted, you know, this was all probably part of their original deal. You know, if Feige and Marvel Studios were smart to say, hey, look, as part of this, you know, we need you to do some voice work, you know, and all of this stuff, you know, each episode, this could have been done in a day. You know, Haley Atwell could have done her part in a day. Sebastian Stan in afternoon. You know, all the characters who were not principals in the episodes, you know, they could do them in an afternoon and be done. But I agree with you. And I just think, man, in general, like, not unlike when when Zack Snyder did Watchmen, I was like, okay, Watchmen was such a weird idea to bring to the general public.
Right.
Who doesn't have years and years, you know, at that point, you know, 40 years of superheroes and people putting on costumes and pajamas with their underwear on the outside.
Right.
And fighting and having secret identities and supervillains. like without you kind of knowing what all that is, and then the deconstruction of the superhero that was Watchmen, it just seemed like an odd thing to bring to the general public. I was like, I just don't think they're gonna get it.
Right.
Like they're not gonna get what it's supposed to be. And similarly, it was the same kind of a thing. My reaction, as mentioned twice before on this episode, with What If, where you and I had been reading comics for, however long before this series came out as kids.
Sure.
So it's like, okay, wait a minute, Spider-Man is in the Fantastic Four?
Right.
What? Daredevil's in S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Right.
Jane Foster has the hammer of Thor?
Right.
Captain Marvel is a Skrull, or whoever's a Skrull.
Yeah.
Conan is walking around in modern day with a 357 like he's fucking Clint Eastwood. You know what I'm saying? Like all of these ideas, blew our minds where we were like,
Right.
But you had to have all those formative years of reading comics as a kid in order for your mind to be blown. So anyway, that's ultimately what I'm getting to.
No, I get it, and I think to your point, it's like I think what Marvel's established with the long track run and successful track run with these movies is that they've taken some of the casual observers and they're being like geeks that want to know more about what can happen.
You're right.
Like I said, I think they're very smart. Like I said, with the whole Loki thing, like I didn't suspect Loki would be a situation wherein they introduce the branches of reality and breaking it out. And you got to be careful of that though, man, because you get into a whole Crisis of Infinite Earth type situation in DC and a whole lot of mess to clean up. I mean, granted, there are already different Earths already in Marvel. I know there's 616 and several others, but not like DC. And every so many years, DC tries to clean that up with a new crisis, and it's like Marvel needs to try to avoid that at all costs. Stick to several streams that you do well, 5 streams you do well, and leave that shit alone. Because the farther you branch out, the more problems you have.
What's funny you say that, because that's what you said earlier about Loki and different timelines and all of that, and this does play right into the whole Phase 4 announcement from a year or two ago. Where Feige was saying they're going to get more cosmic, they're going to play more with time and alternate realities. Like you're saying, bringing in Jeffrey Wright as Uatu animated just means that we might actually see a live action, CGI Uatu. Yeah. In the films at some point, voiced by Jeffrey Wright. To kind of carry you from the animated series. Mm-hmm. So you were correct in saying that if someone doesn't watch these, even though these are questions that are kind of left open,
right,
open-ended, so to speak, but the inclusion of the Watcher, the fact that there is multiple, and even in Spider-Man Into the Multiverse, into the Spider-Verse rather, I should say, the same thing. There's different Peter Parkers, there's different Spider-Mans,
right. And they're already playing with that. That's in December when the next Spider movie comes out. That's all about alternate realities. It's all about different blendings. You got my man playing Doc Ock back, man.
Alfred Molina.
Yes, that's gonna be freaking awesome, dude. And
they're saying Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are gonna come back.
Yeah, that could happen. Yeah. Because it's alternate realities. I mean, it's a multiverse of madness, which eventually is going to be another Doctor Strange, movie. So they know exactly what they're doing, man. It's how they're going to get there is going to be interesting,
That concludes this episode of Sidebar Forever, hosted by Dwight Clark, Swain Hunt, and Adrian Johnson. You can find us online at sidebarforever.com. Any emails or questions can be directed to us at sidebarforever@gmail.com. And also, subscribe to us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.